Hi folks, and welcome to the Ace Tanker for the Object 268, a Tier 10 Russian tank destroyer. At least one of them. The one that isn't the Object 263, but, you know, Ace Tankers are kind of weird and wonderful things. They are weird and wonderful things, but I'm going to get more into that in a moment. Let's start with the history. The Object 268 was a prototype, just one was ever built. The project was started in 1952, and it was a project to basically design an SPG out of a T10 hull. So this is an SPG based on the T10. So it began development in 1952, and in 1956 the prototype was ready for testing. It passed its trials, but for some reason, I haven't been able to find out, it actually, even though it passed its trials, it never went into production. So the one and only prototype that was built still exists today in Kubinka Tank Museum, but that's pretty much it for the history. It was just a prototype, only one was ever built. Now, this is one of two Tier 10 Russian tank destroyers, and I think possibly from playing this tank, it is one of the most underwhelming, disappointing Tier 10s I have played. It's just suffered from power creep a lot. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play this tank before it got a pile of nerfs, so I never got to play this tank when it was at its best. I got to play it after it had gone through multiple nerfs. It went through the TD nerf, where TD's view range was nerfed. The camo rating while firing its gun was nerfed, so there are two nerfs that affected the tank. Also, the alpha damage was nerfed on the gun. So the gun that comes on the Object 268 is if it pops up. No, it doesn't want to pop up, but basically it's 152mm. Now, yeah, that's roughly 152mm that also happens to come on the Tier 8 and also happens to come on the Tier 9. So, yeah, it's basically got the same gun as, it's not a BL-10, but it's roughly the same gun as comes on the Tier 8 and Tier 9, which basically makes it a little bit of a disappointment. You see, this tank originally had 850 alpha damage, which was really, really good, and might have made this tank a little bit different had it still that alpha, but the alpha was reduced, nerfed to 750, and as I say, it's got the same alpha as the Tier 8 and Tier 9, so you're not going to be doing any more damage, but you're going to be shooting tanks that basically have a lot more hit points and can take a few more hits than you do in the Tier 8 and Tier 9. So the gun, big disappointment, and it's not just a disappointment because the alpha damage is the same as the two tanks that lead up to it. There are other disappointments, so I might as well go into that. So basically what I've got here in Tanks GG is the ISU 152 at Tier 8 that leads on to the Object 704 at Tier 9 that leads on to the Object 268 at Tier 10. All three tanks are up here. Now I normally compare like to like. Why am I comparing tanks of different tiers? Well, basically, this is the issue I have with the Object 268, is it's just not a big enough upgrade. You see, most people love the ISU 152 at Tier 8. I mean, the fact it gets a gun that's good enough against Tier 10s at Tier 8 and can possibly shoot Tier 6s is awesome. It does have some downsides. I mean, it doesn't carry a lot of ammunition. As you can see, it only carries 20 rounds, and the gun handling isn't great. It trolls you, but basically, if you like the ISU 152, then you're going to have fun playing it, and you grind through it, and you get the Object 704. And when you get the Object 704, it basically feels as if it's not really an upgrade. I mean, there are some things about the 704 that are better, but it doesn't feel that much better than an ISU 152. It doesn't actually feel like a whole tier higher, at least till you get used to it and get a good crew, and once you actually get used to the Object 704, I found myself preferring the 704 over the 152, but the issue is, it's not that big an upgrade. So what you can see here is the DPM gets a little bit better, the penetration is the same, the rate of fire is slightly better, the reload time is slightly better, but it's not by much. Shell velocity is the same, it's the same gun. The weapons handling is slightly better. In fact, the aim time is much better, but the accuracy isn't that much better. The soft stats shooting on the move aren't that much better than it is on the 152. Same elevation, same gun depression, and the movement. I mean, it's slower, but it has faster top speed, or slower top speed. It's slightly quicker, but almost unnoticeable reverse speed. Slightly better tank traverse speed, but again, not by much, almost unnoticeable. So the power to weight ratio is almost the same. The horsepower of the engine is almost the same. The ground resistance is almost the same. So basically, it's not that big an upgrade. I mean, the gun is identical, so really, and it's slower top speed, but the object, or the ISU 152 to the object 704 isn't that big an upgrade. The sloped armor gives you a little bit more armor, but really, when you look at the stats, other than hit points, there aren't any major differences. Hit points and aim time seem to be the major differences between the ISU 152 and the 704. Otherwise, they pretty much play identically. So stepping up from Tier 8 to Tier 9 is a bit of a disappointment because it's not a big upgrade. It's very, very minor. And that's the issue I have, because when you go from the Object 704 to the Object 268, it's almost identical. Again, the step up from Tier 9 to Tier 10 really isn't that big. So once again, what you could see is the DPM gets a little bit better, just like it did from Tier 8 to Tier 9, but not by much. It's only about 100. So essentially, it's got 200 more DPM than the ISU 152, and that's not a machine known for its DPM. So, Object 268 is really not that much more of a DPM machine than the Tier 8 or Tier 9. It just gets slightly better. That's pretty much it. The penetration is good on the Object 268, but once again, the penetration's amazing on the ISU 152, it's good on the 704, and it's not that big an upgrade. I mean, it's good enough. 303 is very, very good, but it's not amazing. It's a step up, it's a step in the right direction, but it's not amazing. And when we come to the rate of fire, once again, you can see again the 268's rate of fire is slightly quicker than the other two, but it's a very, very slow progression. It's not that much better than the Tier 9. The reload time is not that much better than the Tier 9, so maybe you will notice it a little bit, but not that much. It's not going to make that big a difference. And so really, it's a step up so far, but very minor step up. And then the negatives start to come in, because for some reason, even though it's not that big an upgrade over the 704, the shell velocity is much, much worse. It's only got 760 meters per second shell velocity compared to 880 with the BL-10. So you're going to be missing it. It's a lot harder to use the Object 268 as a sniper because it takes forever for the shell to reach the target. You may have more penetration, but it takes much longer to hit the target. So it's a much harder tank to use as a sniper. And for a tank destroyer, that's a very, very big issue. So yeah, shell velocity has been nerfed compared to the Tier 9 and Tier 8. So yeah, we get down to the weapon handling, and once again the aim time is better than the previous two tanks, but it's incremental. It's not that much better than the 704. The accuracy is definitely good on the tank at 0.32, and that's the excuse they give for making the gun handling so bloody bad, is, oh well, it's got good accuracy for a Russian tank, so let's make everything else about the gun bad. Let's reduce its shell velocity, and let's give it worse gun handling than you get on the Tier 9 or Tier 8. So the gun handling, dispersion while shooting on the move, shooting while turning your tank, shooting while swinging your gun is the same, but the accuracy on the move is slightly worse than it is on the Tier 8 and Tier 9. And then we come to the gun elevation. It's worse. The gun depression is worse than it is on the two previous tanks. The gun traverse, look at the gun traverse, only 6 degrees of gun traverse. It is so hard to keep this gun on target. It's almost impossible to track a moving target with the Object 268 because you've constantly got to move your hull. The gun arc is so narrow. It's so much worse than the 704, and it's even worse than the ISU 152. So everything about the gun, other than the penetration, has been nerfed compared to the previous tanks. It's just horrible. So it's got good aim time, and pretty much everything else about the gun on the 268 isn't very good. Now we finally come to another strength for the 268, which is its movement, which is better than it is on the previous two tanks. So it's got faster top speed, better reverse speed, better engine, better horsepower to weight ratio, and the ground resistance is slightly better on medium and soft ground. But again, it's not that big. I suppose the top speed is, but the rest of the stats, I mean, the power to weight ratio is not that much better. The horsepower is not that much better. The ground resistance is not that much better. So pretty much everything about the tank so far is just a slight step up, or even a nerf compared to the 704 and even the ISU 152. The last major differences here are the view range is better than the two previous tanks, but again, you can see it's incremental, 350, 360, 370, so it's a step up, but not that big. And then the armor is, on paper, very, very good compared to the previous tanks. You get 187 on front, which is amazing compared to the other tanks, 100 on the side and 50 on the rear. But that, once again, doesn't tell the whole story, because the armor is just, it really doesn't work that well, because this is a tier 10. You're going to be seeing tier 10s all the time. First of all, the frontal armor, you've got about 220, weaker, stronger in some areas, but roughly about 220, 225 on the front of the tank. So you're going to be penned by tier 10s unless they're shooting you at a weird angle and you bounce. It's going to probably be better in 917, but at the moment the front of the tank is a pike nose, and basically it's going to be, it's pretty much not going to cause anyone other than tier 8s, and even then some tier 8s are going to be able to pen it with no problem. So tier 9s, tier 10s not going to have that much problem going through the pike nose. The sides of the tank look very, very well sloped, and that's okay, but when you take into consideration that you're going to be facing tier 10s, and you know, you've got anywhere from 230 up to 280. Again, the armor on the upper plate or the upper hull is going to work, or it's not going to work. And then, if you're playing against people who know what they're doing, this tank is covered in weak spots. First of all, the viewport here is only 72 millimeters thick. So, I mean, if you hit around the viewport, you know, you might pen, you might ricochet, but, I mean, there are areas here where you can pen it, and if you're face-hugging or enemy tanks are above you, and they usually are because this is not a very tall tank, they can shoot down on it, and then basically the front plate here, this area here around the viewport, is even weaker. So if they're shooting down on this, it's a weak spot. If they're up close and personal, they might bounce if they hit it at a bad angle, but most of the time they're going to be able to pen. So, you know, here's 72 millimeters, 100% chance of a pen. So, yeah, this is a weak spot that is a little bit troll, but, you know, again, why try maybe risking a bounce here when you can just go for this? And this is, why is this a weak spot? I don't know, but it's got 122 millimeters of armor, and pretty much any tank that faces an object 268 from the front is able to shoot this. And when you go hull down, you're exposing your viewports, and anyone can shoot this. So, you know, it's not the easiest tank to play. It's got lots of weak spots. The armor is not amazing for a tier 10. It's okay, and of course the side, not very good, and the rear absolutely terrible. RT's going to do a lot of damage, T49's going to do a lot of damage. So really, the armor is not amazing, even though on paper it looks pretty good. Lots of weak spots, and the tank, the gun handling is bloody awful. The alpha, since it got nerfed, is awful. The progression from tier 8 to tier 10, it just doesn't feel that much better than an ISU 152, is what I'm trying to say. So it's kind of a big disappointment, and I think it's a tank that has suffered from a lot of nerfs, and it's suffered from a lot of power creep, because most other tier 10 TDs I would classify as maybe a little bit better. So what's it got in, you know, what's it got, you know, that's good about it? Well, you know, the shell velocity is bloody awful, but the aim time is good, or the accuracy is good. The accuracy is good for a Russian TD. The camo rating is very, very good for a Russian TD. And then the maneuverability is quite good for a tier 10 TD. But there are still tanks in the game with better maneuverability. So, yeah, it's very, very underwhelming. But anyway, as I was saying, yeah, ace tankers are very, very strange things. They really are. Let's make that a little bit smaller. We're here on Himmelsdorf, and put it into fixed cam. Unfortunately, new replay system doesn't tell me what speed this is, so I'm not quite sure. That looks too fast. That looks like ×2. This looks like ×1. Okay. So we're here on Himmelsdorf. It's a tier 10 game. 5 tier 10s on either side. So, you know, it's a pretty balanced. Lots of tier 9s. Well, a couple of tier 9s. Actually, a lot of tier 8s. Didn't realize there were quite so many tier 8s in this game. But, yeah, ace tankers. I've been getting a lot of messages and a lot of people sending me copies of ace tankers or ace tankers that they've received in tanks that I have aced. And, you know, quite often the comments are that well, I did more damage than you, I got more XP than you, and it wasn't an ace. Or, I got an ace, but I had to do a hell of a lot more than you did in your game. Yeah, so, sometimes I have a game that I feel is worthy of an ace tanker, and sometimes I have a very, very average game that happens to be an ace tanker, and occasionally I have a game that is bloody awful, and yet turns out to be an ace tanker. But, yeah, as I say, they're very, very strange. Now, in the old days, what Wargaming used to do was they'd have ace tankers running. They were you have to come in the top 1% of results in the tank over a 7-day period. But what they used to do is they used to reset the ace tanker requirements every 7 days. Now, that's what they used to do years ago. As far as I'm aware, although I could be wrong, now it's a rolling average, so there is no ace tanker reset. As you can see, I angled because I've got a beak about both on my upper hull and lower hull. I basically can't, when I try to angle, enemy tanks can pen me. I don't want to shoot this guy. He's on such low health. I don't want to waste my shell. Thankfully, someone finally takes him out, and I end up taking another hit because I didn't want to shoot him. But it does mean, even though I lost a little bit of health, we were able to swing around the corner and get a shot into the Panther. Yeah, but ace tankers, as I say, they used to be reset every 7 days, and as far as I'm aware for the last couple of years, it's a rolling average. So it doesn't matter when you play the tank, it is a result of the last 7 days. So, anyway, we've basically flanked, we've sneaked up on a Tiger 2, we've done 4,000 damage already. No kills, which is a little bit disappointing, but, we're playing quite aggressively, top tier. When you're a top tier TD, you can afford to play a lot more aggressively, and oh, that was so unlucky. So unlucky. Going for the lower glacis and the shot goes high, hits the upper glacis. But thankfully the E100's not interested in me for the moment, so we're going to go for the lower glacis. I'll get one shot in, and I'm trying to angle, and he hits my tracks and does 0 damage. So the armor can be troll. Oh, Grill 15, no, he didn't bounce. And then again, we're at a bad angle. Grill 15 puts a shot in, but I've got a shot on the E100, able to save the T10. And that's my first kill. So we're up to almost 6,000 damage here. And I don't want to be shot. A lot of dangerous tanks down in town shooting up at the hill, so waited till I dropped off radar, then I advance, and I want to try and do a little bit more damage. Panther 2 goes down, Grill 15. Now, if I'd been thinking, I probably should have loaded HE here, but I didn't, and it's too late to reload. And once again, I'm a one-shot kill, so I don't want this Grill 15 coming for me, so I'm basically waiting for the Grill 15 to come for me, and I've got to track him in place, but it looks as if, yep, he's shooting other people. So we swing around the corner, get a shot into the back of his tank for 700, and as I say, I wish I had HE loaded, but gotta try stay safe, because if they don't kill him before he reloads, I'm dead. Nope, they've pinned him in, so he's fired, and the IS-4 basically decides to ram the gorilla to death. So yeah, not a bad result so far. We're up to 6.5k damage, just playing really aggressively, but I lost a little bit more health than I was hoping to. Or I would have liked to have lost. So yeah, okay, it's an encounter game. 3 tanks left on the enemy team, and basically I'm going to speed it up because I'm waiting for shots here, trying to get shots, trying to get outlines, not finding anyone. So I'm wondering whether or not I'm going to get anything else up here, and then the Jagdpanther, or the Jagdpanzer E100, nope, decides not to advance, he's retreating. And in the meantime, we've just lost 2 tanks in town. So now it's 3 versus 4, and I've wasted too much time sitting on the hill. 4 tanks sitting on the hill, and maybe I should have been more aggressive. Maybe I should have gone down, but as is, I don't want to die because it's a good result. I'm a one-hit kill, but I can't be too passive either because the enemy team are capping. So I decide to basically come down off the hill while the E75, yep, the E75 full health still sits up there and snipes. Okay, top tier heavies. Alright, so we're moving in, going to be aggressive. Only 1 kill so far. Batchat AP goes down. Jagdpanzer E100 has his own issues, got a full health IS-4 to deal with now. So that just means there's a 30 left, and we're going to charge in. Going to use this wreck for cover, swing around the corner, get a shot in. He bounces, he hits my gun mantlet, which I forgot to say, the gun mantlet in this tank is much smaller than the gun mantlet on the previous two tanks, the ISU-152 and the 704, but I'm reloaded and I'm gonna... no! A millisecond too late. A millisecond too late. You can see me in chat going, no! Yeah, even a Ferdy has no problems penning this tank from the front close up, and he was shooting at sloped armor. But thankfully our team won. But as I was saying, ace tankers are weird and wonderful things, because this wasn't an ace. Ha ha, fooled you. This wasn't an ace game, but we did pick up Confederate, we did pick up high caliber, and we ended up coming top on damage with 7,180 damage done. However, it was only 984 XP and just one kill, and, you know, disappointing, but, you know, that's okay for a first class. So, 7,000 damage done in the Object 268. That was quite an interesting and exciting game, but, yeah. As I say, ace tankers are weird and wonderful things, so this is the ace game, and what you can see is this is an all tier 10 game, with the exception of the fact we've got one tier 8. I don't know what the hell's going on there, but every single tank on the enemy team is tier 10, and every single tank on our team is tier 10, with the exception of one tier 9 and one tier 8. Yeah, balance. Balance. Yeah, so much balance. Yeah, but we're here on Airfield, and we're going to be moving up into and play pretty much a much more traditional TD game, and that means it's going to be a lot more boring, a lot more camping, a lot more shooting from distance, and yeah, as I say, you don't have to play TDs this way, but you know, you see too many people playing TDs, actually I should say this way, and there's a time and a place. When I'm in a game where there's 2 RT and where every single tank on the enemy team is a tier 10, then I'm going to be playing a lot more passively. When I'm not, when I'm top tier, and there were a lot of tier 8s, like the first game I showed you, you can play a lot more aggressively. And this is something you really need to learn how to do, because it kills me to see heavily armored tank destroyers, our only top tiers, camping. Because they happen to be tank destroyers. You know, it doesn't matter what map you get it on. If you're top tier, you've got a bigger responsibility. You've got to take more ownership. You can't sit back, wait for all your lower tier teammates to die, and then complain about your bad team because you've been sitting in the corner for the whole game, especially when you're top tier. So, yeah, I don't mean suicide either. Don't do something stupid. But if you're in a heavily armored TD and you're top tier, there's a very good chance your armor is better than most of the other tanks on your team. So anyway, yeah, we're sitting here, and this time I'm going to be shooting pretty much every tier 10 because there's nothing but tier 10s to shoot, and you get more XP and you get more credits for shooting tier 10s. And there we go. We just hit the tracks, tried to track the FE215B183, hit his tracks and did 0 flaming damage, so didn't even track him. And this is part of the problem. This is why I don't like this bloody tank, because that's 750 alpha damage, and yet it wasn't enough to track. You know, it damaged the tracks, but it wasn't even enough to detrack an FE215B. So, you know, it's a very accurate gun, as you saw from that shot in the E50, but the shell velocity, just look how long it takes for the shell to reach the target next time I shoot. Yeah, I'm debating whether or not to shoot this guy through the rocks. He pretty much staying on the move because there's RT in game. But yeah, this is a much more traditional tank destroyer game. And it's the first time I'm actually watching this replay. No, but you can see how long it took the shell to loop to the target. It loops to the target, it's got slow shell velocity. So yeah, first time I'm actually watching this game since I played it. So kind of forgotten what had happened. Alright, but I do remember I played very passively for most of the game, and, you know, I decided to show you something a little bit more interesting than me sitting and hiding behind a bush trying not to get spotted and being in fear from RT. So, yeah, enemy team are being very aggressive. As you can see, enemy team are all on the 7 and 8 lines. Most of the enemy team have been spotted. Don't know where that shot went. Maybe it missed. I was looking at the mini-map rather than where I was firing, but missed a shot in the bat chat, and I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed at this point in the game because I need to be having a bigger impact. I need to be doing damage, and so far I've only done 715, and the score is 2-2. I need to be doing damage. I need to be having a bigger impact on that game, and now we've just lost our 260. Oh, mouse. And 811. So yeah, once upon a time, this 750 Alpha would have been 850. That could have been well over 1,000 damage. I go for this 907 because he's being more aggressive, he's a bigger danger. Hit his lower glacis, and as I say, this bloody tank just trawls you. 303 millimeters of penetration, lower glacis, 907, and it's a bounce. So I could have gone for a safer shot on the mouse, but the mouse is protecting the E50. Go for his lower glacis, and that's where the accuracy is. Even though I'm hitting where I'm aiming most of the time, sometimes this gun just refuses to pen. You know, tier 10, 303 millimeters of penetration, refuses to pen, but the accuracy trawls you. And there we go. That is a track shot for 0 damage on an E50M. So someone else manages to do more damage to him, but yeah, it's a troll tank. So go for the lower glacis again, 907. It goes where I'm aiming, but I think I may have hit a wreck or may have gone under his tank. So yeah, it's a typical when we talk about the ISU 152 BL10 trolling you. Then the 704's gun will troll you, and this is no different, even though the accuracy is much better on this gun than it is on the ISU 152. It just trolls you, and you can have games where your gun cannot miss, and you can have games where you miss every single shot. And this is one of the things that annoys me about this tank. I think it is very average to maybe even slightly underpowered due to the nerfs. So certainly compared to what I believe other tier 10 TDs play like. But just reversing a little bit further to make sure the bushes go solid. Don't want to get spotted. Enemy team are advancing. So the score is 5-6. We're losing slightly, but you know, it's not terrible. We're still holding the line, and I'm wondering, do I relocate? 907, two 907s in play here. Enemy team on paper look pretty strong. So just waiting for someone to advance. But yeah, not very exciting gameplay. And that's the problem sometimes when you play TDs like TDs. You end up having games like this where basically you've got to be careful. So E50, and there we go. This is why I hate this bloody tank. And it gets me spotted. And now there's an AMX-50B shooting at me at distance, and he bounces, but still too arty in play. So yeah, E50 or E100, side of an E100 once again, track for 0 damage. Our Grill 15 takes out the IS-7, which is good. Our E100 takes a hit, so now I've got to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm hoping the Gorilla is going to give me backup. So we go on the attack. 50B has come down off the hill, but we've got a bad shot and a VK defending. I take the hit from the E100, finish him off. Okay, so that's why I was conserving my hit points, playing a little bit more passively, but now there's just a 907, and I'm a little bit worried he's going to try and flank me, and I'm hoping the Grill's going to be able to back me up. E50B, or 50B, I was wondering if he was going to be coming up the slope. Nope, doesn't look like it. So, you know, scores a little bit more in our favor now. It's 10-8. But I've got to be more aggressive. I've got to find this 907. There's a Batchat and a Gorilla 15 backing me up. I'm hoping the Batchat doesn't decide to camp. But it looks as if he's deciding to camp. Oh, I could have done with him, because if the 907 flanks me, I'm dead. But moving up, just looking for the 907. Okay, Batchat's coming up to support me. Now I feel more comfortable. And in the meantime, we still have a VK4502B camping spawn, because that's what VKs do, or heavy tanks do. Spot the Batchat, get a nice shot in. That was 806. And as I say, 750 alpha damage. So getting a few nice higher damage rolls in this game, but definitely not as high as when this tank was at its peak. So Batchat, 50B, 907's on the ridge. I want to go after the 50B, but I think I'm going to... Am I going to ignore? Yeah, I'm going to ignore the 907. So finish off the 50B, get into cover. Unfortunately, the Batchat goes down to an enemy Batchat, so now I'm in a little bit of trouble. Grill 15, come on, dude, need you. Is he coming for me? Is he really coming for me? Oh, he is coming for me, and that was a huge mistake. 907 gets a shot in, but yeah, that Batchat just lost the game for his team. or pretty much. So 907 goes down to our T62A. There's the 261. And I don't have much to shoot at, so just 2 RT left on the enemy team. Grill 15's moving up on my left. I'm moving up on the right. And that's pretty much it. So a very, very standard game. Lots of disappointing shots. Lots of shots that basically should have done damage, but did no damage and ended up tracking enemy tanks for 0 damage. And that's what this gun does to you. I sat in a bush for most of the game, and then when I needed to, I advanced and got a little bit more aggressive. And that's pretty much it. Used my hit points as a resource. And the last RT goes down. So yeah, a very, very uneventful, not particularly interesting game. And yet it was the ace. And that's what I'm saying. Ace tankers are weird and wonderful things. Because I did basically almost 4,000 damage compared to almost 8,000 damage in the first game, but the difference was I was shooting tier 10s compared to tier 8s, so damage doesn't always mean you're going to get an ace. It depends a lot on how the XP modifiers are working, what sort of tanks you're shooting at, whether or not you're shooting them in first person, or whether or not you're spotting the tanks yourself, or whether or not other people are shooting them, and in which case you're sharing your XP and credits with whoever's spotting the enemy tank. So, you know, the Object 268, it was also one of my cursed tanks, so played a lot of games on this tank to finally ace it, and it happened. But as I say, the game was, in the end, it was very, very average, and I'm very, very surprised it was an ace, but apparently it was. So we got 1036 XP out of that game, which was enough for the ace, and that's very, very low for a tier 10, but I'm not complaining. As I say, it's one of my cursed tanks, and I'm so glad to get it out of the way. 0 damage from our VK. Yep. Heavy tanks, camping spawn, my biggest hate. My newest, biggest hate in World of Tanks. So yeah, 14 shots fired and 11 hits. So accuracy on the gun trolled me a little bit, and then 7 hits and 11 hits, 7 pens. So the penetration trolled me, and that's exactly what this bloody gun does. The damage wasn't particularly high. Most of the damage, or nearly half the damage, was done from a distance of more than 300 meters. I only spotted 1 tank. I damaged 7, destroyed 3, and only got 1,000 assistance damage. So even though I tracked the E100, I tracked the E50, and I tracked it, or didn't even track an FE215B183. My assistance damage was pretty low. So damage was pretty low for the tank. Assistance damage was pretty low for the tank. I didn't earn very many credits, and it was an ace, and I can't explain that very well. It's just like I say, aces are weird and wonderful things. But the Object 268, it was a cursed tank. It's done, it's dusted, it's over, it's aced. I never have to play it again, except when I pull it out on special occasions. And it's not terrible. I mean, it's possible. It's possible to have great games on this tank, but it's just too inconsistent for me, and it just feels that when I'm playing other tier 10 TDs, I mean, most other tier 10 TDs feel better. They feel as if they have got something going for them, and the Object 268 really doesn't. It's got maneuverability, but it's not amazing compared to most tier 10 TDs. It's got accuracy, which is not amazing compared to most tier 10 TDs. It's got alpha, which is not amazing compared to most tier 10 TDs. And it's basically got armor, which is very inconsistent, and the gun handling is just bloody awful. So, yeah, not that impressed. It suffered from power creep, and I really don't recommend it. If you are going up Russian heavies, if you play the ISU 152, when you move to the 704, expect more of the same. The upgrade isn't big. And then when you move from the 704 to the 268, the upgrade feels like a downgrade. It actually does feel like a downgrade. There's some things this tank is better at than the tier 9, but in most of the areas where it counts, it's worse. And that's one of the reasons I didn't like it, but it took a long time to ace, and as I say, it's done. I'm rejoicing it's gone. You know, let me know. Have you played the 268? Do you hate, well, I don't hate the tank, but it's not a tank I would play for fun. It's just going to sit in my garage until someone requests it in future, but yeah, it's functional. It's adequate for a tier 10, but it's definitely not very good, at least in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.